Aita for not wanting to go to my sister's wedding because her fiancé makes cruel jokes about my recovery. So I, 32F, have been sober for just over 2 years now. I was an alcoholic and also struggled with drug addiction for a few years before I hit rock bottom and got my life together. It's been a rough road, but I'm proud of the progress I've made. I'm in a much better place now, and more importantly, I've been able to be a better mom to my son. Here's where things get tricky. My sister, 28F, is getting married in a few months to this guy, Mike, 33M. I've never been a huge fan of him, to be honest. He's got this really crass sense of humor and always makes these awful jokes about my past. At family dinners or get-togethers, he'll say stuff like, "Careful, don't let her near the wine," or, "Hey, we gotta make sure there's no drugs at the wedding, right?" It's always said in this joking tone, but it feels so mean. And it really hurts because my recovery is something I take very seriously. I've asked him a few times to stop making these comments, and he just brushes it off like it's no big deal. "I'm just joking, lighten up," he says. My sister just laughs along with him and says, "That's just Mike, don't take it to heart." But the thing is, it's hard not to take it to heart. I've been through hell and back to get sober, and my past is not something I'm proud of. Every time he makes one of these jokes, I feel like I'm being dragged back into that dark place I fought so hard to leave behind. I've tried talking to my sister about it, but she's totally dismissive. "You're being too sensitive," she says. "Mike's just trying to have fun, don't make a big deal out of it." My parents are on her side too. They think I should just suck it up and go to the wedding, that I'm making too much of it, and should just laugh along for the sake of family harmony. They keep telling me it's just a joke and to stop being so dramatic. But it's not funny to me. I don't think it's fair that I have to sit there and be mocked for one of the hardest things I've ever done. And honestly, I'm scared being around that atmosphere at the wedding could make me want to drink again. I'm proud of my sobriety, but it's still fragile. And I know being around people who don't understand what I've been through is hard for me. So now I'm considering not going to the wedding. My sister is furious and says I'm being selfish for making her big day about me. My parents think I'm overreacting and that I should just let Mike's comments slide for the sake of family peace. But why should I have to be around someone who constantly makes me the butt of the joke over something so painful? I don't want to cause a rift in my family, but I also don't want to put myself in a position where I feel unsafe emotionally. Aita, for not wanting to go to my sister's wedding because her fiancé's jokes hurt too much, and no one in my family is standing up for me. Stories number 2. My husband, 30 dropped our baby and I, 25F, slapped him. Can our marriage be repaired? We have been married for several years. We welcomed our first baby earlier this year. Other than typical newborn stress, we've been pretty happy, until this past weekend. I received a call from my husband telling me to come home, and then hung up. He said nothing me. I frantically drove home from work. Upon entering our home, he started yelling at me for being a horrible mother and how dare I not be home and not answer his calls. I was at work when he needed me. He then told me that our daughter had fallen. He put her on the kitchen counter, in her car seat without being strapped in, and walked away for 10 minutes. Even went upstairs, watched TV, played on his phone. In that time, she had wiggled out of her car seat and fell onto the kitchen floor. I was aghast when I heard this. The rage I felt was indescribable. In my fury, I slapped him. As soon as I did it, I ran off to our daughter's nursery and drove her immediately to the ED to be evaluated. Thankfully, she was okay. Now we are sitting in the aftermath. I am upset and feel my trust has been betrayed. He had been drinking around her all day, and that infuriates me. He, on the other hand, is enraged about the fact I slapped him. I don't think physical violence is ever okay, and I apologized for it. He's hell-bent that the slap will be the reason we now get divorced. He says it was all just a mistake and that it won't happen again. And he may be right. I really don't know if there's any recovery from this. It feels like our marriage is over. Do you think there's any way this can be worked out? We do plan to see a therapist. Stories number 3, Aita. For laughing at my ex's mother and telling her how much child support I've been receiving? My ex and I parted ways back in 2023. Ever since it happened, the communication with him and his family has been rocky. He was not interested in providing for our child, 6, and I had to apply for child maintenance. He's in debt with them, circa £1.3, and has only paid about £120 in total. I've not been on good terms with his parents. Amongst other things, they asked me not to apply for child maintenance, etc., as their boy cannot afford it, and so on. So you could say we're not the best of friends. Here's where the problem started. They recently found out about quite a few concerts I'm planning to go to. Yes, I'd posted about it on SM, but they have no access to my accounts. I don't know how exactly they found that info. Recently, during child drop-off, my ex's mother got very upset about the concert mumbo-jumbo and started telling me off for making my ex pay child support and I just waste on myself and so on. I couldn't hold it in and just started laughing, which aggravated her even more. When she stopped ranting and I stopped giggling, I told her that her son's child support wouldn't even cover the travel cost of the trip. And they can rest assured that I don't live off of his child support given that I wouldn't be able to raise my child on that amount, let alone the both of us. I should have stopped there. But I also added that so far we've received approximately £10 a month. Note, I said that without doing the math. Truthfully, it's 11.09 cents LOL, which doesn't even cover the cost of fruit my child eats. So neither of them has any say in how I spend my own money. Note, I'm not sure if it matters, but yes, I work full-time, so I spend my earned money. She called me a liar and stormed off. Now their whole family are upset with me, saying that I was rude, and they expect apologies. I was also told that I was an asshole for telling them how much I actually receive, as it's put my ex in a bad light. My friends are divided too. Some found the situation hilarious, and others say that while it was fair to stand up for myself, I shouldn't have told her how much I get in CHM. In my defense, I had no idea it was such a big secret. I genuinely assumed she just didn't care about the amount and just focused on the idea of me getting any money from them. Also, it's worth noting, my child didn't witness this interaction. She was already indoors. I'm sure it would have gone differently. I would have stopped the rant sooner, with the kid present. So, Aya for laughing and telling her how much HM I've been receiving? Stories number 4, AIO for asking my neighbor to stop holding her yoga classes in my backyard. So, a few months ago, my next-door neighbor, Karen, started teaching yoga classes in her backyard. No big deal, right? Except her backyard has slowly started to spill over into my backyard. At first, it was just a mat or two near the fence, but now her whole group of yogis basically takes over half of my lawn every Saturday morning. One day, I look out the window, and they've set up an entire speaker system blasting calming nature sounds and healing frequencies, all while I'm trying to enjoy my coffee in peace. I politely asked her if she could keep her classes to her own side of the fence, and she just laughed, saying, "Oh, it's all one big green space anyway." The kicker? Last weekend, they brought out incense, and suddenly my backyard smelled like a meditation retreat while I'm trying to grill burgers. I asked her, again, to maybe shift the class back into her own yard. She told me I was being too territorial about shared nature and should appreciate the community vibe. So am I overreacting for wanting to reclaim my own yard? Or is Karen taking namaste a bit too far? Stories number 5, Aya for not wanting my ex to move in with me and our daughter. I, 19M, have an 18-month-old daughter, Mia, with my ex, Anna, 18F. We broke up during her pregnancy, but we've been doing our best to co-parent. Right now, Anna lives with her parents, and I live on my own in a 2-bedroom apartment. I work full-time, so balancing everything has been challenging, but I make sure to stay involved in Mia's life. I have her a few days a week, and she has her own room at my place. Anna asked if she and Mia could move in with me. She's been struggling at her parents' place. It's a small apartment with a lot of tension. Anna believes it would be better for Mia to have both parents under the same roof, and she says co-parenting would be easier if we all lived together. While I understand her perspective, I'm hesitant about the idea. First of all, we broke up for a reason, and I'm worried that living together might bring back old issues or create new ones. I want to keep things peaceful for Mia's sake, and moving in together could complicate the boundaries we've worked hard to set. Even though I have a 2-bedroom apartment, I'm working full-time, and I need my space to manage my job and responsibilities. Adding the pressure of living with my ex could create unnecessary tension, and I'm not sure it's the healthiest move for any of us. Anna thinks I'm being selfish and prioritizing my comfort over Mia's well-being. She believes living together would give Mia more stability and allow both of us to be more involved. I've explained that I'm committed to being a good dad, and that I'm willing to help Anna in other ways, like with rent or taking Mia more often, but she's still upset. Now I'm wondering if I'm in the wrong for setting this boundary. Aita, for not wanting my ex and our daughter to move in with me, even though I have the space and work full-time, or am I right to think this could create more problems down the road? Stories number 6. My husband's 36 fair daughter, 5F, was dropped off at our house 2 weeks ago, and it's causing issues in our marriage. Is there any way to salvage this? My 34F life is falling apart, and it's all thanks to my husband. We had a perfect life, Both of us worked in the jobs we loved. We have a beautiful daughter, 10F, and a healthy son, 5M. When I was pregnant with our son, we both almost died due to complications. So, before the birth and even afterwards, I didn't want to have making love. Why would I? I almost died and my body was in pain for months afterwards, even with strong medication. I thought my husband understood because he never pushed me for making love or even asked. I thought it was because he understood my pain, but apparently he was just getting it from somewhere else. A few months ago, we were visited by Child Protective Services. I was terrified at first, frantically thinking of what we did wrong with our children to cause a visit. But no, as it turns out, some woman I've never met before died in a car accident, leaving behind a daughter. And my husband's name was on the girl's birth certificate, and he was named in the woman's will as the father. I thought it was a mistake at first until my husband told me the truth. As it turns out, while I was suffering my pregnancy and the after effects of almost dying, my husband would go to a woman he knew at work and get it off with her. He said this as if he did me a favor. Well, as the CPS worker explained to us, my husband is her closest living relative that can care for her. The woman's family apparently wanted nothing to do with the poor little girl. When she asked us if we wanted to take her in, I said yes. Yes, I know this might be the true cause of all my issues, but my husband pawned that poor girl off to live with her single mother for 5 years. He doesn't get to pawn her away when she needs help. She's his responsibility, and now is ours. I told him I'll help take care of the necessary visits for wellness checks and help with whatever CPS wants us to do. All he had to do was explain everything to our children. The fact I'm saying this tells you what he did. Yes, nothing. We had to clean out a room and buy new furniture and even looked for some toys. Our children go to a private school, so I picked up some more work hours in order to be able to afford her tuition. I was the one who had to tell our extended families the big change because he didn't want to do so. I did almost all the heavy lifting. So, color me shocked when his daughter finally joins our family 2 weeks ago, and the first words out of our children's mouths was, "Who's that?" Yes, I was the one who had to tell our children's school, extended families, family doctors, and my workplace about my husband's affair and subsequent addition to our family. But he couldn't tell our children, being he was too ashamed to face them. So, guess who was the one who had to explain that they have a sister now as I'm trying to settle the poor girl into her new home and room? And shocker, our children didn't take the news well, as it was happening right in front of them. My daughter was screaming while crying, causing my son and the little girl to cry. A situation that could have been avoided if my husband just did the one thing I asked of him and explained everything to them much sooner. It's been 2 weeks of her living with us, and the situation hasn't improved. My husband has not picked up the slack that comes with having a new addition to the family, so we're struggling right now to make ends meet. I feel embarrassed bringing all 3 children around for appointments and groceries because the little girl is very much obviously not mine, and I can tell people are judging our family. My daughter is much moodier and less happy and refuses to even acknowledge our newest addition to the family. Our son doesn't really understand what is going on, and it's causing even him to lash out. And I don't even know how to help the poor little girl because I know that if I feel like my life is falling apart, she must feel even worse. I suggested family therapy, therapy for our children, even just marriage therapy, so we can hopefully move past this and work together as a unit for all the children. He's refused everything, saying that he knows he'll be lectured by everyone when all he was doing was trying to help me. I just don't know how to fix this. Please help me. I don't want to divorce him because I just know that will make it worse for the kids, but that's the only option my family is telling me. Meanwhile, his family is begging me to make this work and to just look past it. Thank you. I hear you all loud and clear. We'll be looking into therapy for me and the children and hopefully a good divorce lawyer. But first, I need to get some answers because some of you are raising some good points. Update. April 25th, 2024. I'm sorry, you all were right. It was a lie. When all of you were pointing out how the kids' responses to youngest arriving didn't make sense, it made me realize how correct that is. They came home to a room all made up, and I made passing comments to them asking about how excited they were for youngest's arrival. They should have known about her. At this point, I decided to just ask my eldest daughter directly because she was still so upset about it, and I think subconsciously knew I wasn't going to get the truth from husband. So I went to her room while she was lying in bed and I asked her. I told her that I asked her father to explain to the 2 of them what was going to happen. They saw her new room. I talked about her to them, so I don't understand my eldest's reaction. So yes, it turns out husband didn't tell them, and then me the truth. A surprise to no one, I am figuring out. The story he told the kids was that youngest was a daughter of one of our friends, and we felt so bad we had to take her in. Nothing about her being their half-sister, or him having a daughter with another woman. Well, when she came home that day, and the kids asked who she was, the pictures we were able to share of youngest she had braids in, and wore much different clothing than when she arrived. It was my response to them that ruined his little lie. This is youngest's name, your half-sister, remember? Our son was too young to really get what it meant, but our daughter did. That's why she freaked out that day. Not because of the new addition to the family, but because what the new addition meant. I apologized for causing her to freak out that day, for not sitting both her and her brother down for a real discussion over how they feel, and to make sure their father did what he was supposed to do. And apologized for only talking to her now, after she had a much-deserved reaction to it all. My daughter accepted the apology, and I asked her if that was why she was distant from the youngest. She told me that's part of it, and because word got out at her school about what the newest addition to our family going to the school meant, so now she's getting teased and picked on for having a father who cheated. It broke my heart, realizing just how badly I messed up. By continuing to beg the spineless man they called a father to help them, and then allowing myself to get shut down, I was essentially allowing all the kids' needs to be ignored. I told daughter I'll sign her and her brother and sister up for therapy. Of course, the pathetic man tried to plead with me not to when I mentioned signing the kids up, but I told him to give it up already. All 3 children's lives have changed, and it will help them adjust with a professional to speak to. He's been grumbling and whining about it, but I don't care anymore. And this might cause many to be upset with me, but I'm in the process with husband to have him transfer custody of youngest to me. I've grown to care for her. Why, and as some comments in my last post have pointed out, once I do divorce him and leave with our kids, I don't doubt he'll treat her awfully or neglect her. He's been right on board, and it took some convincing, but his parents finally agreed to be witnesses. I got all the paperwork set up and scheduled an appointment with an attorney to help with anything else. Once that happens, I'll try to get everything I need in order to have a smoother divorce and then subsequent move to be closer to my family. Thank you to everyone for giving me a good slap in the face and help me realize that the children and I deserve better. And I was being so gullible into thinking a man who cheats on his dying pregnant wife is deserving of any respect. New update, October 16th. How do you tell your children you're going to divorce their father? I have 3 children, an 11-year-old daughter and 2 6-year-olds, a son and daughter. Just recently, after months of court hearings, home visits, background checks, and interviews with a judge and a social service worker, I've been granted custody of my 6-year-old daughter with her biological father, my husband, giving up parental rights to me. Right now, I'm looking into how a divorce will go and what I need to get any affairs in order to make the process as smooth as possible for everyone involved. The reason for the divorce is because of how he behaved when his adultery came into light. As you can see from the ages, he cheated on me with a coworker of his while I was dealing with a highly complicated pregnancy and birth. I was the one who had to get everything in order. Meanwhile, it seemed like he did everything he could to make the process of a new addition to our family as difficult as possible. He lied to our children, refused to take all 3 children to therapy, and when I did take them, he whined and complained, refused to take on extra workload to help our budget stabilize after a new addition, refused to even acknowledge the children were struggling, and even refused to take all 3 children out and about because he didn't want people to judge. But it was perfectly fine for me to go through it. Basically, it felt like I was the only one trying to repair our family and have us move forward, while he made damn sure we were stuck and hurting because he refused to acknowledge that he messed up. Divorce is the only option for me at this point. I just want to know, how can I explain this to my children? I've seen how refusing to actually explain to children can hurt them. Hell, I was the one picking up the pieces from last time, thanks to him. I just don't want there to be any more lashing out or fighting. I'm terrified for my eldest in particular. She was the one most hurt by all these changes, and I know she'll understand why. The last thing I want is for her to blame her siblings or herself. I've yet to tell anyone else my plans for divorce, because I don't want it getting back to him or the kids before I'm ready. And if there is no way to make the impact easier, how can it make sure it's less damaging for them? Stories number 7. Husband's mistress was rude to me, so I ruined her favorite thing, Twice a few years ago, I found out my now ex-husband was having multiple affairs. I contacted the women in an attempt to figure out what was going on, timelines, etc. Most of the women were lovely, and I held no contempt or anger for them. They were victims of lies and deception too. But one woman took a different approach. She was rude and abusive, accusing me of being controlling, frigid, fat. I'm only one of things and it's not frigid, etc. Unfortunately, she was in Ireland and we were in Australia, so no chance to confront her. I tried to just move on and deal with my real problems, but I couldn't shake the audacity, so I looked up her socials. She was hard out obsessed with Australian MasterChef. Obsessed. Being a fan myself, I knew that the show was aired and concluded in Oz before it was shown in Ireland. So I screenshot the winning dish and mentioned her in a tweet containing the details of the winner and the runner-up and the winning dish photo. Then I set an alarm in my phone and did the exact same thing 1 year later. After the second spoiler, she put her Twitter account on private. Stories number 8. I gave a scammer £1,500 over the phone today. I am sick, absolutely humiliated and angry at myself. I got a call from my bank at 6:45 p.m. asking me about fraudulent transactions in my account. He knew my name, address, postcode, date of birth, and the last 4 digits of my card. He knew I had made purchases in London on the 13th October. He said there had been $1,500 in charges on my account, and in order to reverse the charge, he needed the verification code I just received from my bank via text. I opened my texts, eyes went straight to the number, and I gave him it. Then I read the text which said, not to give the number to anyone, including bank employees. It was a text I had received 1,000,000 times before when making purchases online. He immediately hung up, and my phone pinged informing me of the outgoing transaction. I checked my account, and I am now overdrawn. I canceled the card in the app, phoned the bank who took details, and said I need to wait 2 to 3 days for the payment to clear before they can proceed with the full investigation. I phoned 101 to ensure I have an incident number to share with the bank so they don't think I am making a false claim. The payment was made to an online alcohol retailer owned by Diageo and based in Belfast. The guy is presumably selling the alcohol he buys. There was also a £65 payment to the London Borough of Camden. I contacted some security people at Diageo I found on LinkedIn, as well as the data protection officer at Camden Council. I will be phoning the alcohol retailer first thing to see if they can cancel the transaction. I have spent the night replaying the incident in my head and realizing how stupid I was. I had to tell my wife, who put on a brave face but must think I'm some idiot. I have done some research about banks having to refund customers affected by fraud, but only in cases where the customer was not negligent. I am worried that they will decide that I was negligent in this case by providing the verification code. I know I am an idiot, so please don't rub it in. The reason for the post is to warn everyone that these things can catch you off guard and you need to be vigilant. I am also hoping this post will allow me to sleep after getting it off my chest. Thanks for reading if you made it this far. Update: I phoned the alcohol retailer at 9 a.m. today and they said they are going to try to cancel the order, so I am anxiously waiting to see if that happens. I'd like to thank everyone for the kind comments. It was a tough night, and I'm surprised how much this has affected me in terms of my overall confidence and sense of self. I will never take the piss out of any fraud victim again. I always assumed I'd never fall for any form of social engineering. Update 2. The retailer canceled the large transaction, so now I just have a smaller sub-£100 transaction pending to the council in London. One of the things that has struck me is how eager some people are to take the piss, including some close friends and family I mentioned it to. I think that sort of mentality is why these scams are such big business. I get the impression that people consider victims complicit or that they are largely to blame. 99% of the comments here have been supportive and understanding, so I hope my story helps 1 or 2 of you avoid this situation if it ever happens to you. Stay safe, everyone. Stories number 10. My partner's mess is next level and it's actually ruining my life. We have 2 toddlers. We both work full-time. Although I handle everything in terms of finances, kids, housework. I am a housewife who works 40-hour weeks. He is 100% more messy than our kids. The level is astounding to me. Things like loose cash, loose screws, builder, absolutely everywhere. He doesn't flush the toilet. He leaves his tea bag in the sink. He won't put his clothes in the laundry basket. He forgets to take the bins out. His main job. I find rubbish, wrappers, paper absolutely everywhere, in every corner of every room. The absolute clutter is ruining me. I can spend hours on the only day with kids just trying to sort it all, for it to be the same the next day. This is an ongoing issue, but now I just find myself hating him. I don't think it's going to change. It's disgusting and so unsupportive and mentally draining, and I have fallen into a deep depression because I simply am no longer a person. I am isolated, a cleaner, a career, a chef, a full-time worker, an organizer, and the list goes on. If I go out, all I can think of is that I cannot let my hair down, because I am biting my nails knowing for every hour I try and be a person, I have 2 hours of cleaning and anything else. I look at him and just think, you are a cunt. Oh, and I will look bad if I become stressed, and he will tell me to try and not stress, and the kids are listening, so I will look like the person who ruined the relationship, when in actual fact, Mummy has no support. Rant over stories. Number 11. Boomer decides to try to pick a fight with me at an airport because I'm going through the people who need extra assistance. Line one day after I had double knee surgery. This happened last week. I had double knee surgery like the title says, but I needed to fly the day after. So I call the airline and the airport, explain my situation, and arrange for extra assistance. As I am hobbling with my canes towards down the short line at passport control, there was supposed to be a wheelchair there for me, but it didn't show up, so I was forced to make my own way. This boomer, standing in the regular passport line, starts yelling at me. He starts screaming at me about why I get to go through the short line when half his body is destroyed. Mind you, the guy is standing looking pretty fit, except for his gut, and wearing a large backpack on the destroyed side of his body. I try to be nice and tell him to ask the security personnel nicely, and maybe they'll let him use the short line. This apparently pissed him off more, because he flips me the bird along with a "fuck you, asshole." I say, "Okay, bud," and keep hobbling down the short line. I look back and see the guy having an animated conversation with security, and they let him into the short line. So he took my advice and got what he wanted. This apparently isn't good enough for the dude though, because he's standing behind me, huffing and puffing and breathing down my neck. Next thing I know, he pushes past me because I choose to protect my knees instead of blocking him. Pushes past 2 old ladies in wheelchairs and goes to the front of the line. The customs agent sees what happens, and bless her heart, she tells him to go aside for further screening. He is still standing there opening his bag up for customs and arguing with a giant customs officer when I get to the passport desk. The nice customs officer clears me in 2 seconds and apologizes for making me wait. Last I saw of him, he was still yelling at the customs officer while they toss his bag. I really hope he pushed it and ended up in a small room answering questions to a customs officer for a few hours. What is up with these lunatics? P.S. Sorry for any typos, the app isn't letting me edit. P.P.S. Hi. Finally able to add to the post. For those concerned about my health, thank you. I am good. I had arthroscopic surgery on my meniscus, ES. It was a short flight, I took blood thinners, and I'm relatively healthy in general. Also, I hate hospitals, so as soon as they let me try, I walked and told them I felt great. Sure, I couldn't feel my nether regions very well yet, but I can work with that. It was an interesting stay in a very different hospital than I got used to in America, but the food was better. I think they had a bunch of grandmas cooking or something. Stories number 12. Ex-coworker that was harassing me contacted me months after my resignation. It has been 4 months since I quit my job because my direct supervisor and his boss acted towards me in a way that could be perceived as mobbing. The supervisor was shouting and getting angry whenever he didn't like something about my work, mostly on minor things like the way I explained a technical term in a text. He would also call me names like bitch, or adding comments about my work like remove this nonsense. He used to get extremely angry at level at which I was afraid to go alone to a meeting with him in the same room. At the same time, they did not pay me on time, and they did not allow sick leave. 4 months after leaving this job, the same guy contacts me and says that he feels harassed by his boss, my previous boss as well, and he is asking me for my opinion. I have not replied so far. I am really scared of this guy, and I don't know how I should react. Stories number 13. AA for refusing to take care of my wife since she caught the flu from having nuring kek, making love with her affair partner? This is partially a rant and partially an actual question. I, 54, have been married to my wife, Victoria, 54F, for over 32 years. We have 3 adult daughters and 1 adult son. Early this year, she started menopause. I loved her and supported her throughout this difficult time. She said she didn't want to have making love because she felt like she's fat and ugly. I told her she's beautiful, and I was patient with her as she said she didn't want making love. It was only since this month that she wanted us to have making love again. I thought things were getting better until I saw a condom wrapper in our bedroom. My job involves going out of town for business trips. This last trip I tried to get into my wife's social media, and luckily enough she used someone's birthday as the password. I found out her affair partner is Zachary, 35 a family friend who has a wife, 29F. So on my trip, I read so many messages. One message involved Zachary asking if it's okay to come over for their fun time since he thinks he's coming down with something. Even after getting back in town, I read some messages. Zachary messaged that he and his wife have the flu, so he can't see my wife for a while. My wife said that herself, getting the flu, was worth it. I came home to my wife who's suffering from the flu. I immediately told her that I know about her and Zachary. She was upset but too weak from the flu to stop me from packing and leaving. She begged me to not leave her alone while she's sick. After I left, my wife has been messaging me. She said she's very sick. I told her to go to the doctor, call ambulance, or call someone else. She said she's not dying, but she needs me. She said she can't call our kids nor any other family member since they'll ask why I'm not there. She said that menopause had made her crazy and that she wouldn't see Zachary anymore. I still haven't gone back. Am I the asshole? Edit. As soon as I found the messages, I was planning on telling Zach's wife. I wanted to tell her face to face. I wanted to spare our adult kids the horrible news. But many in the comments made a good point that my wife could lie to our kids. So I called Zach's wife first. I don't know what's going on in their marriage because she believed me right away. I called my kids and talked to them like a conference call. I had to, unfortunately, send some proof to them. I didn't go overboard, just enough for them to believe me. Obviously, they're all upset. I tried to keep it together as I don't want to vent about their mother to them. Second edit. Zach's wife has been messaging me last night and this morning. She was planning on leaving Zachary anyway because Zachary was sleeping with 2 other women. But the fact that Victoria is a married woman who is like a family member speeds things up. Zach's wife made Zachary leave the house. Also, all my kids have called their mother. They're not buying any of their mom's excuses. They all want me to divorce her. The answer was obvious, but I needed other people to tell me, so I didn't stupidly go back to my wife. Thank you for those who commented on the first post. I had made 2 edits on the first post, explained some stuff that happened after I posted. To just briefly touch on those edits, Zach's wife and my adult kids know that my wife Victoria had an affair with Zachary. Zach's wife kicked him out of their house. All kids are on my side, and they want us to divorce. I talked to a friend who's a major divorce attorney for the 3rd time. I've given her a lot of the evidence so she can decide what we can use. She did say that I should be careful with what I say online, especially I used Victoria's and Zachary's real names. Our kids, especially our eldest daughter, are pressuring their mom to make this a quick and easy divorce. A lot of people who commented said I was being too nice to my cheating wife. I'll show some pettiness by letting everyone here mock all the excuses and minimizations she made for her cheating. Menopause made her crazy. She felt fat and ugly. She felt like she didn't deserve me. Zachary came on to her first. She wanted to make sure a man can be attracted to her without him being obligated to, because she's the mother of his children. She had making love with Zachary to make sure she can still have making love. Zachary didn't mean anything to her. I'm overreacting because Zachary is a family friend and not a family member. Zach's wife isn't like a daughter to us. She didn't betray a woman that's like a daughter to us. Other husbands have forgiven their wives when the wives cheat. If I had making love with a younger woman during a midlife crisis, she would have forgiven me. We have 4 kids. We've been together for so long. I promised to love her in sickness and in health. Stories number 14. My husband wanted a threesome for his birthday. My husband's 30th birthday was coming up, and I wanted to do something special for him. He's always a bit cagey about asking for what he wants, but this time, when I asked, he had an immediate answer. Would you be open to a threesome? What? He must have seen the look on my face because he immediately went into cleanup mode. I was more than enough for him. It was just something he'd always wanted to try. It could really spice up our love life, which was already pretty great, I thought. He understood if I wasn't comfortable with it, but he really thought it could be amazing for us. He just kept laying it on. I told him I needed to think about it, and he seemed to understand. After taking a couple of days and talking to my sister, I told him that I'd be willing to try it one time and we'd see how it went. He was thrilled. He immediately started going on about this one person who he knew might be open to it. At that point, I thought to myself, if her name came immediately to mind, is there already something going on? But I dismissed the thought as nerve-induced paranoia. We negotiated some ground rules and he set up a meeting. When I got there, The first thing I noticed was how much she looked like me. He definitely had a type. We talked, and she seemed pleasant enough, so we made plans for the following Saturday night. When Jenny arrived, we sat around chatting nervously and drinking wine, mostly me, and then we got to it. I was nervous, but I think it went okay. My husband paid sufficient attention to me, stuck to our rules, and seemed to have a good time. In the morning, we said goodbye and sent her on her way. But then he began asking when we could do it again. I reminded him that I'd said one, but then he asked, "Didn't you have a good time?" And the pressure started. I also noted that my hair was a little shorter in one spot and there was a locket I couldn't find. But it wasn't a big deal. I just wanted to get back to our normal life. The next week, we were out when we ran into Jenny at the store. We got to talking, and she asked if we'd be up for a repeat. My husband said absolutely. When we left, I asked him what the hell he was doing, but he just said he thought I'd be into it. After several conversations, I gave in and we scheduled another get-together. This one also went well, and we bid her farewell. We then ran into Jenny again the following week, and I couldn't help but notice that she looked even more like me than she had before. Her hair had darkened to match my shade, and her lips seemed a little fuller, like mine. I mentioned it to my husband, but he said I should take it as a compliment. She probably just liked my look. The next week I was out running some errands, and I saw her. I started to go up and say hello, but something told me to hang back. And lo and behold, who should come walking up to her but my husband, who leaned over and gave her a kiss. That asshole. I decided to eavesdrop, and I heard him saying that everything was going according to plan. He said that the wine has worked perfectly and that he'd have more samples later to follow the hair and the locket. At that point, I had no idea what the hell was going on, but I had a bad feeling. Later that night, my husband suggested another get-together. I thought about calling him out, but at this point, I wanted to know what the hell was going on, so I decided to play along. When she came over this time, I pretended to drink the wine but spit it out before we started. Then we went to the bedroom. This time he seemed more into her than me, which hurt, but I was done trusting him at this point. Afterward, I pretended to sleep, and I noticed him cutting off more of my hair and swabbing my skin, and then leaving the room with her. I tried to follow and listen, but I could only hear some of the conversation, the process, and metamorphosis, and almost ready. I went back to bed and lay down, utterly confused. The next day while he was at work, I went into his office and, after an extensive search, found a hidden drawer with a book entitled How to Make the Perfect Wife. What the fuck? I read a bit. It was about using magic and science to create an exact replica of your current wife, but better. Was this real? How dare he? My mother always said to us girls, don't get mad, get even. She was a smart woman. It was time I listened. The next weekend we had Jenny over again. But this time, after we were finished, I woke up tied to a rack in the middle of the room. "I'm sorry, dear," said my husband, "but this just isn't working out. It's not me, it's you. But don't worry, soon I'll have a better you." With that, he gave a potion to Jenny, and she began to morph into an exact copy of him. The look of shock on his face was one of my favorite sights ever. "Surprised, dear? Yes, I discovered your ruse. Would it surprise you to learn that the last batch was filled with your DNA, not mine?" Then I looked over at the thing formerly known as Jenny. "Kill him." And it did, violently. I woke up the next morning, cuddled with James. He made me breakfast and asked about my day, all while telling me he loved me. He was the perfect husband. Stories number 15. I probably saved someone's life today while trash-talking to my friend. Today I was walking outside to talk to my friends on call without interruption of my parents. As I was talking, suddenly a man comes up to me and asks for my phone to call someone. His face was covered in sweat and saliva of his own. He tried to speak, but he couldn't speak. No words were coming out of his mouth, just gibberish. And I was obviously scared that this might be a trick on me to snatch my phone and run away. So I was like, "Okay, calm down. I'll let you call, but I'll hold the phone. You don't touch it." He obliged, and he called someone, but they didn't pick up. I was feeling kinda relaxed at that point, as no one was picking up, so that means I can leave, right? But then this guy starts to break down, cry. I was like, whoa, this is serious now. Then he calls another number, and then they pick up, and then he talks to them in his gibberish way while panicking. Turns out that it was his family that he was talking to, and this guy was mentally and physically ill. He couldn't speak because his jaw dislocated, on both ends. He was leaking saliva all over his face, and then tears started to stream down too. His family then talked to me, and they asked for a request if I can help him. They asked me to put my hand in his mouth and relocate his jaw. I looked at his face and I saw all that stuff flowing down his face, and I couldn't do it. They said that he is having breathing problem, it has to be done. They said if I can wear something on my hand and then do it. I couldn't do it. I made excuses. So then they asked me to put him in a taxi to some address they told me. I was like, okay, I can do that. But that guy was in a terrible situation. He was like throwing up and stuff. And then I said to his family that there's a hospital nearby. I can take him there. The doctors can help him. Then I thought of that. I'm not the correct person to help him. He definitely does need medical attention, and I just can't make him sit in a taxi. So we rushed to the hospital, and I told his family to come there. It was an awkward walk to the hospital, as people were staring at us while he cried and threw up walking with me. Then we reached at the hospital, and then the doctors were pretty chill. They quickly examined him, fixed his problem, and suddenly he started speaking like magic. Whoa. And then his family came to the hospital. They thanked me a lot, and his mother was crying and shit. His uncle shanked my hand like 20 times. They offered me some food if I want some, but nah, I denied. That guy was a mentally ill patient in a mental hospital, his family explained. And he came out of home without telling anyone, all alone, and got lost. He was like 12 kilometers away from home. Stories number 16. Coworkers misspelled my name and got me a cake. I can't eat on my birthday. Today is my birthday. I've been at this company for over 2 years. I walk into work today and my coworkers say they got me something. I get handed a card which is addressed to me, but my name is spelled wrong. They got me a small cake, but I can't eat it because there's gluten in it, and I haven't eaten gluten in over 10 years. For context, it's a small office with only 4 of us. Since each of us have birthdays and anniversaries, I'm always vocal about my dietary restrictions, saying no, sorry I can't have that, or oh I brought my gluten-free such and such. And my name is mildly unique, but not out there enough to not know it after 2 years. Edit to add more info. I am really grateful for the effort they put in. This is my first time ever celebrating my birthday due to being raised in a religious cult, and I put a lot of effort into everyone else's birthdays this year at the office. So I was bummed by the way this turned out. Stories number 17. Aita told my best friend I don't want to hear about her relationship anymore. Listener, write in Aita. I told my best friend I don't want to hear about her relationship anymore. My friend Amber, 28, has been dating Bruce, 42, for almost a year now. They just made it official, July. Well, this relationship is, to say the least, is completely unhealthy. Bruce is a virgin. Amber is a single mom of 3 children. She, on her own, has a lot of issues. She lost her child father last year. Anyways, let's start off with her. She's 28, a single mom of 3 amazing children. She is a hard worker. She is smart, kind, and a complete people pleaser. She has daddy issues. She also is terrified to be alone. Now this is Bruce. He is 42. He owns a house, a car, and like I said, a virgin, and he have a major gambling problem. Every week, she complains about their relationship, not feeling fulfilled, unsatisfied, and not loved. She breaks up with him every week and get back together with a day or 2. This has been a pattern since end of August. When they go on dates, he is frugal with his money. They share meals. But then last month he spent $5,500 at the casino. She asks for flowers, and he tells her 1 flower in more meaningful, but tells her he won't buy them if she asks. She wanted plushie, and he said he'd buy her one. He has yet to do that. Then, also, he refuses to drive her places. He tells her it is going out of his way. He lives across the city, she doesn't drive. If she spends the night the next day, he expects her to bus or Uber home under her own expense. The bus is 2 to 3 hours, Uber is $50. She's a single mom, and really can't afford that $50, including paying her babysitter to sleep over at his house. If she asks him for a ride, he will act annoyed or cranky about it. One day he told her no. So I offered to come get her to save the $50 and just buy me a coffee. She proceeded to ask him for the address for me. And he sighed saying, "Oh, never mind, I want to drive you now." He drops her off and then went to the casino and lost $500. Told her he will never be driving her home again because it was her fault he was tempted to go to the casino because he had to drive her. Note, he didn't have to drive her. I would have picked her up. Anyways, note that he's a virgin. They haven't had making love. But she gives him head almost every time they are together. I've told her that he's using her because no other women in their right mind would be okay with that, especially not being a virgin or having the act reciprocated. She tells me she loves him and wants to marry him. I asked her what she loves. She just answers with, "I just do." I don't know what it is. I explained that love isn't just because, it is thoughtful gestures, respect, and things you can actually pinpoint and recall. She didn't say anything about that. Anyways, I've been the friend that hears about everything. I've supported her, I've listened, I've gave advice. At this point, I am exhausted and over all of it. I told her today, after noticing she was at his place, that I respect her choices. But from here on out, I do not want to be involved or hear about her relationship. She got upset and told me I was heartless and didn't understand love. I said I do and I will support your choices. I do not want to hear about it anymore because it is draining me to keep repeating myself every week. Stories number 18. I don't understand why customers just don't leave. To preface, we're a small mom and pop store that's located in a bad area of town. Retail desert. So a mom and daughter combo walked in, and immediately, the daughter was very vocal about our prices and such, to where once they came to the register to check out, "Y'all motherfuckers just charge anything you want to, huh?" So I told her, "Yeah, we can. When you start a business, you can too." Which then got into pointless banter. The mom didn't correct her anything but was still respectful to me. There was an item that wasn't available, so I suggested a substitute, and the daughter once again interjected, "We get a discount now, 'cause we not getting what we want, right?" So again, I responded, "No, we don't offer discounts unless you're a beautician, hairstylist/barber." She kept on with the disrespectful remarks until she said, "Get the fuck out my face." I was standing maybe 3 feet away from her and her mother showing her a product. This is where I lost it. I told them to leave, and I'm no longer doing business with them, and they can shop somewhere else. The mom pleaded because she wasn't the one being disrespectful, so I had to tell her she wasn't doing anything to correct her daughter's behavior, and the daughter might have been in her teen years, maybe a young adult. Either this beckons my title and last statement, why don't people just leave? Stories number 19. They gave out my cell phone. So I'm fuming. I work remotely. Our work phones are through the computer system, and the system was down for a few hours. Instead of telling clients this or taking a message, the receptionist gave out my personal cell phone number. Why? Just why would you do that? I'm not generally a petty person, but the fact that she doesn't find an issue with it and has yet to apologize really irks me. Like I'm probably going to start using her number and email for any spam account I come across. Eat it. To everyone asking why the receptionist has my cell number, she has it because she contacts me on it. The number was given to her by me to use as a backup for when our work phones are down and she has a question, I am traveling for work, etc. This was for her use for these reasons only. When reported to my supervisor, I learned she did the same thing last week with another coworker's number and was written up over it. She obviously learned nothing from that experience and did it again. Still doesn't understand why this was wrong and has yet to apologize. We have an HR meeting scheduled at 3 p.m. today. Update. So, the meeting started early since all parties were present and was shorter than expected. The receptionist was written up again and put on probation, but when told she would have to contact each of those clients and apologize to them as well as me, and provide the correct number, and also go through the company training course again, she became very upset, and being using foul language towards me as well as our supervisor and HR agent. Needless to say, she quit 2 seconds prior to being fired for such behavior and is now on a no-hire list with our company. My supervisor and HR agent apologized to me for the breach of privacy. They are going to issue a bonus that essentially is for the next 3 months' cell phone bill, and I will be getting a company cell phone that calls can be forwarded to when work phone through system is down. Memo is being sent to Kai entire office, warning of disclosing any employee's personal information in future. Stories number 20. I have been barely working for the past year at my job, but no one has noticed. Title is the start, but it's a doozy. Last year around this time, my boss was let go in a really nasty sabotage kind of way. I had been doing his job and my old job to prepare to take over for him, as he was planning on moving up. He has always worked really hard, and he had been working on business development more and more and entrusting me with his old responsibilities. Then one day he called and said he had been locked out of everything at work. Our GM contacted me and told me that I'd be responsible for his position and would be laterally promoted. This promotion came with no raise or bonus structure. I would also be in charge of the 2 properties I was managing before this happened. I knew how much my old boss made and expressed my disappointment in the compensation situation. I was told to fuck off basically. I assumed this was because I was next as soon as they found someone, so I started looking for another job immediately. 1 month passed, then 2 months, 3. All the while, my clients were loving me, and I was making them a ton of money with very minimal work. Once I figured out some market information, I had realized we could restructure some things that cost us a bit more in payroll, but made up for it tenfold in ROI. 4 months pass. 5. I am sitting around in my office. I am one of 3 employees in a remote area. We don't even office in the same place, doing nothing. I play computer games 80% of the day and give my immediate attention to anything that comes my way work-wise. Meanwhile, profits are still rising and I'm doing less and less work. No acknowledgement from my direct superiors, despite my clients loving and praising the work I do for them. Now, it's been about a year and I have found a new job, one that will challenge me and give me satisfaction. It's with my old boss who, come to find out, was immediately hired by a competitor at almost 3 times his salary at the company I still work for. My salary will now double, and I will be working with someone who I know cares about my development and work. Almost this whole time, I have been playing video games and getting paid a really nice salary to do it. It shouldn't have paid off, but it did. I haven't told anyone that, but here we are. Stories number 21. Feeling overwhelmed by the omnipresence of Chinese speakers. I feel like the title is bad, but I didn't know how to word it, so sorry about that. I low-key feel shitty to be writing this, especially because I was really looking forward to meeting people from all around the world here. But the situation has been making me feel really bad recently, and I wanted to know if anyone had ever felt this way, or had any advice to feel more included. Basically, my master's is like 10% of non-Chinese speakers, which means whenever I sit down somewhere in class, people around me speak Chinese and don't really include me. Even when I try to start a conversation with them, they will quite often answer quickly and switch back to Chinese. This made me feel bad and lonely, but I just eventually accepted I would not be making friends for my master's. However, today I was supposed to meet with a group to work on a presentation we have to do this week, and I was definitely not expecting them to speak Chinese for the full hour we were together. Once again, I tried interacting, but it's basically impossible when the people facing you are not trying, and this made me feel like I could not even work properly on my own presentation. This makes me really suffer because I really want to chat with people for my master's and be able to work properly with them, but right now it's not working, and after just 1 month here, I'm already feeling really overwhelmed and lonely. Edit. Wow, I was not expecting so much reaction. Thanks to everyone who shared their experience or advice, it helped me feel less alone in this situation. I hope the next few months and next assignments will go better for me or for everyone who has been feeling the same. I'd still like to say that my post was in no way made for people to start being racist or hateful towards Chinese people. That's just shameful. Stories number 22. My mom refuses to take me to the hospital after being sick for almost a month. My friend took me to the hospital during school, and I do have pneumonia. I have been at the hospital for a few hours now, and my mom was made aware of where I went. She showed up to my room crying, saying, "Oh my baby," and other bullshit pretending to care. She gladly gave over my healthcare and other documents to the doctors, and she is acting as if nothing happened and she is just a worried mother. I told the doctor my past medical history and what my mom has done. I will probably be staying at the hospital overnight, but luckily they said it wasn't life-threatening yet, and I will make a full recovery in a few weeks. The doctor gave me my health card when my mom left for a bit, and it's in a bag with all of my stuff under a chair. I keep pretending to sleep so my mom doesn't come into my room as often, and the doctor told me that she will have to leave after visiting hours anyway, unless I specifically tell them I want her to stay. I will be okay, thank God, but this was really scary taking initiative against my mom's wishes. I had to do something similar a few years ago when I had to leave my physically abusive father when I was 14. Thank you to the people encouraging me to go and giving me support. I think everything is under control now. As for leaving my mom's house, I think I will just need to wait until I have saved up enough money to get an apartment with one of my friends, but I can worry about that after I've recovered. Stories number 23. Aita for helping my ex-husband. Learn from my mistake. I helped my ex, father of my children, cheat on his wife. I realized after everything was said and done and the truth was out, that he was manipulating me again. I spent 6 years with him from 2012 to 2018, if my memory serves correct. We have 2 beautiful kids, and even though we had an abusive relationship, I wouldn't change it for the world. I love my kids. Anyway, after years of being separated, he was always still so mean to me, screaming at me in front of the kids when we switched, telling me he didn't care about my health. I have a bad memory along with other issues at the time. He was always so cold and stared daggers at me constantly. I always extended my arm so we could have a positive, friendly relationship for the kids. He got married and I thought his wife hated me, but it turned out he was spreading lies about me. About 4-ish months ago, he got less distant and started being nice to me. I let my guard down and he weaseled his way back in. In some way I realized I felt obligated to entertain his conversations of his depression and how much he still loved this girl he's known for a long time. My only thought was if he's happy, everything will be okay, and he won't verbally abuse me in front of the kids anymore. I let him talk about his feelings towards this girl. We will call her Abby. Abby lives states away, and he never stopped thinking about her. At least from what I've heard. I supported his decision to fly across the state to see her, and even took him to the airport and lied to his wife. Not long after I realized what I had done, and I told my ex's wife. Let's call him Jake and his wife Nicole. She said she had her suspicions, and it led to a whole blowout which I don't feel comfortable getting into. Let's just say Jake had a lot of people worried and on edge. After talking to Nicole and crying and telling her how sorry I was, I learned that Jake had been feeding her so many lies she wanted nothing to do with me. Even though we were never really close, I still got her Mother's Day card for the kids and tried to make small talk when I saw her. Since everything has happened, we have come to an understanding and are now friends. I know what I did was wrong, and I know I'm the asshole. I just really needed to get this off my chest, since I have no one I feel I can really talk about this to. If you got this far, thanks for listening and feel free to tell me. Just an edit to add, I'm getting a lot of comments about therapy, so I'd like to just say that I have been in therapy for a while. I struggle with manic depression. My ex was never the primary focus of my therapy. My health issues has been, the focus has since shifted. Stories. Number 24, Aita, for refusing to give my brother a character letter to help his court trail after what he did to a friend's daughter. Hey everyone. So I, 28F, have a brother, 31M, who is looking at serving time in prison for intimate relations with a minor. 14F, who is one of my friend's daughters. This has been going on for months, as evidence states, and we only found out a few weeks ago. When I found out about this, I had a discussion with my friend and apologized for what happened, but understandably she wants space. I have also cut off my brother, as this whole situation is just disgusting to me. My parents, however, have stayed by his side, and are trying to say the only reason he did what he did is because he has autism and didn't know what he was doing was wrong, despite them being shown text messages where he states himself that what he was doing was bad and he could be sent to prison for it. However, after they spoke to my brother's lawyer, he stated that we could each write up a character letter to be presented for him in court so the judge can have better understanding of who is beside the incident. But I refused because I don't think he deserves it. I'm currently 6 months pregnant, and I don't want my daughter to be around/grow up with a man like my brother. I've spoken to my husband about this for another opinion, and he agrees with me not submitting a character letter. But we are thinking of talking to the children that my brother was around in the family, just to make sure that he hasn't done anything to them. My mother is dying, and she says she doesn't want to pass while her son is serving time in prison for something, in her words, that wasn't that bad. Both her and my father are pressuring me to do this, and seeing them so upset is hard for me, but whenever I even think about doing it makes me sick. I just wanted to ask for everyone else's opinion on what I should do. Me and my brother were extremely close up until this point, which I think is making this harder for me. Should I cut out my parents too? Should I make the letter? And hello everyone again. I have no idea how to make updates that lets everyone know the same time. But I'll keep it short. I wish I could reply to all comments, but I'm so tired all the time I have no energy for it, and I really don't want to keep stressing myself out with the pregnancy. But I have read so many and thank everyone for their responses. I have cut off my parents because I 100% do not support anyone who enables rapists, and that's who they are, sadly. It was hard because I did want my baby to grow with 2 sets of grandparents, but I still have my husband's parents, so I'll be okay eventually with this huge loss. I am also not writing a letter, even if it is to say how terrible I think the situation is. I just want to cut everyone off and focus on my husband and my baby. Thank you.